All right. We'll start with Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. From the heart of the savior of the 100 deities of Tushita, on the peak of cloud resembling clump of extreme fresh, King of Dharma, omniscient Lawson Drakpa, please come here together with your sons. In the sky before me on a lion throne, lotus and moon, my perfect pure Guru smiles with delight. Supreme fill of merit from my mind of faith, please abide for 100 eons to spread the teachings. Your holy mind is the intelligence that understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is a near ornament for those of good fortune. Your holy mind is radiantly beautiful with glory renown. To you are meaningful to see, hear, and remember are prostrate. Pleasant drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incenses, light-scented waters, and so forth. Oceans of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated, are offered to you, the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the three vows that I've collected from beginningless time, I confess each and every one with fervent regret from my heart. You stop for much learning and practice in this degenerate age and make your freedoms and richnesses meaningful by abandoning the 8 worldly concerns. Serve with sincerely rejoicing in your extensive deeds. Perfect pure holy gurus from the billion clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of Dharmakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dharma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued exactly as they need. May whatever virtue I've collected benefit the teachings and all transmigrated beings, and in particular, may it cause the essence of perfect pure Lawson Drakpa's teachings to shine forever. Sa shi po ki jun shi me to tam ri rab ling shi ni de gen pa di sangye shindu mikte owa yidrokunamda shin la chupasho. For the merits of having offered this mandala to Lama Tsongkhapa and his 2 sons, may I, my family members, and all sentient beings be able to meet, practice, and actualize the teachings of the victorious one, Lawson Drakpa, who had a morality of eminently pure way of life, was courageous in the extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious ones, and accomplished the yoga of 2 stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Idang Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami. But the force of having fervently requested in this way, hollow beings of white light are emitted from the hearts of the perfect pure Father and Sons, and combining into one, enter my crown. White nectar, the color of milk, flows from the opening of pure white light, cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, obscurations, and their imprints without exception. My body become as pure and clear as crystal. So we're going to do the 5-line Miksama prayer in page 13. Mimetse wete chen chen rezi, jime kembe wampo jampe yan, dupu malu jonze sanweda, kanche kembe tsungen tsongapa, lo sandra ke shavla soa de, mimetse wete chen chen rezi, jime kembe wampo jampe yan, dupu malu jonze sanweda, kanche kembe tsungen tsongapa, lo sandra ke shavla soa de, mimetse wete chen chen rezi, jime kembe wampo jampe yan, dupu malu jonze sanweda, chekembe tsungen tsongapa, lo sandra ke shabla soa de. Chodan tsogi chonam la, chanchu badu dani kyapsu chi, dagi tsonangi, drola benchi sangi dropa sho. Chodan tsogi chonam la, chanchu badu dani kyapsu chi, dagi chishegi betsonangi, drola benchi sangi dropa sho.
Sanji
Chodan
Chodan
Tsogi
Tsoji
Chonam
Chonam
La
La
Chanchu
Chanchu
Badu
Badu
Dani
Dami
Kapsuchi
Dagi
Dagi
Chuji
Chishegi
Jibonda
Betsolangi
Dagi
Drola
Roland
Penchi
Sanji
Sangye
Prabara
Rupa Sho.
Sho Kanki Tuzi Nizone Tawa Tamje Pambi Chere Tambi Chun Tenze Kodam Chela Chanse Lo. Good morning everyone. Namaste, how are you? Thanks. The cousin Sam, one cousin Sam the Nama share the Niba Name Yondin Jiki. The good she was a Niba the Jese.
We're looking at Lamrim Kappa's presentation, the middling presentation of the steps of the path of enlightenment, and we're now looking at the section that explains karma, actions, and the results. In the previous session, we looked at the 8 qualities of fruition, and today we're going to pick up on the next points, which explains the causes for the qualities of the 8 attributes of fruition. So looking at where we are roughly in the text, so the causes for the fully ripened effect, and it says this has 8 points.
Tadi tangan Name Yondin Jiki cousin Ima Jang Tsare Sra. Tadi Kashi Ganzuta Madrachi Shemba Drondi Lola Pama Bob. Tachita, we need to share on the Lola Mapova. Lola Mashomba inza. Kung share on the Lola Mapova Tindi Yungu Yanchik P. Any Gobatan, Garshadan, Tindilla Tuni share on the Yan, so Kaboki, and Karswataji Mansamba Draw Tindida, Yon Sigros, near Diomba Junzen the Chene, Chigi. Some Lobatangway in the Kiomaros.
So in the previous session, we looked at the 8 qualities of fruition, or the fully ripened effects and the qualities. Now, there were 8 points in which, if you really explain them in great details, Geshe feels that then at some point you'll find it difficult to understand some of the aspects, in the sense that it would be difficult to find all of them conceivable. Some of them, Geshe feels that would be difficult to actually fit with our understanding. So it is like that with some of the points that we cover. If you find that some of those points are not really suited for your understanding, or that you find it difficult to understand them, one of the things that we also need to take into consideration is that when examining a certain point, there is a certain purpose for taking up an action, and at the same time there is a prohibition in relation to that action. So you need to look at those two sides, the prohibition and the purpose of doing a particular thing, and see which one outweighs the others. So even though you might say that for your current situation or understanding, that evaluation might not be suited, it does not mean to say that therefore it is wrong.
Chidani Chudi Pigi, that's Nguyen is Shila Shabaton, Tandin Shila Shabaton, Chudi, and that Chungur was the Inaya, Konguyen is Shila Shawa Res Lauchini, Nguyen is Shadashi Chogreslana, Captain, Tutan, Yulia, Turchini, Dujelia, Turnish, Chequage Mato, Nguyen is to Kaim, but Samaloya. She chogmado the shebana any biggie the chicksel dirty any garsha mambu yunguras any sheba ranya by in by in a yanchik any pena 다 동반 하소바 len yobanza ani domba laya zadong jongya gi nyangala soba dindiye son yores ro pe cha sawa na ani sangi yu chu nimbo di pe da nyumba poya de nyumbi nimbo tardu ba di domani tobi ishi domani tobi ishi ke wala to domani ngoje ya chego wala ina domani pe kabo ku dojal tene tem muchosa de le domani temba na ani demba mawi tongje seati o dindi jungu yores ro.
So the Dharma is describing reality, the way that things exist. So this is what the Dharma teaches, and yet when we look at how the Dharma is taught, needs to be taught in a particular context, which means that there is a time for teaching the Dharma, there is a place for teaching the Dharma, there is the particular topic that is to be taught, and also you need to take into consideration the audience that receives those teachings. So it means that although what we discuss in relation to the Dharma is reality, still it's not that that reality can be taught to everyone without any consideration. It needs to be taught in relation to the audience, which means that not all teachings are permitted at all times. If you teach it to an audience that should not receive those kind of teachings, you can incur a downfall, particularly as a teacher, the one that teaches the Dharma. If you teach the Dharma to an audience that is not a suitable audience, then you would incur a rude downfall if you have a certain vow that prohibits you from doing that. Like, for example, one of the root downfalls that we have in relation to the Bodhisattva vow is teaching emptiness to an unsuitable vessel. So although you can say that from a Dharma perspective, the essence of the Dharma is to abandon our afflictions, to eliminate our afflictions. And in order to do that, we develop an exalted wisdom that realizes emptiness. Still, if you teach emptiness to an audience that is not suitable to that teachings, which means that in general, you're prohibited from teaching emptiness to that audience. If you do so, you incur a rude downfall with respect to your vow.
어디래서 진짜 아주 대범밀라 담주된세 그 출 산기비 출이야 대범명인지려야 아니 출 때마이나 직벌했다 아니 돈중고요레스 니버요레스 생엘에 니버요레 냥엘에 니버요레스 더 마이나 그 지치 오늘 단내기 출이야 아니 샘 띵이 대버여봐 학론도 직 대버침비 출이야 대버여봐 아니 디 나니 비기다 직 아니 동안 손들기다 직 Tsultrim 메바 아니 장관놈 중가버치면 손샤기 들려야 샘띵 대바여바는 되니다 그 강인받다 아주 슈초거리 슈고거리스 로 어딘지 톤다 아주 예시 제반다 아니 생이 냥이 상물로야 팬도여 대바지 어딘지 차거로 다 대바 메바이나다고 비기 제실에 샤친 로샤바이나 들려야 로바 마타와치 teleye kya mata wachi odi kandachi lagwa na yunsen kal tuguya na samsam rochi udu sin rosha baya na ani nyanga yo samaris.
In another verse, it is said that the Dharma should not be taught to those who have no faith, in a sense that if you give Dharma teachings to those who don't have faith, those who have no faith in the Dharma, it would be fault, right? So kind of preaching it to someone that doesn't have faith, so to speak, is considered to be a fault. So it is considered to be a fault in the audience, you can say, but also in the person that teaches the Dharma. So if you have heartfelt faith, wholehearted faith in the Dharma, then teachings, if you have faith in the untainted teachings on Sutra and Tantra, in the teachings of the great master Lama Tsongkhapa, then whatever teachings they are, they can be given to you. And as such, there would be a benefit. It would be beneficial both for the person who teaches it, but also to the person that receives those teachings. So that accords with the teachings on the way to rely upon a spiritual teacher, whereas where you take up those trainings in the way to rely upon a spiritual teacher, of the instructions that you get is to training looking at the qualities and not paying attention to the faults, not looking for the faults. So if you're a person that can do that in training and relying upon a spiritual teacher, then those teachings are suited for you.
어디래지다 장골놈 중거 버침비 당아주 까보기에다 장골놈 중거 버침비다 람름 린 슈구연사 장골놈 중거 버침보기 가르난도 슬라원디 쳇땅게 산지 좀 된디게 동하기 출려야 손티기들이야다 주 실내샤 안디 데시 아니 지 공부루두고 쩨비 아니 벤나렌드게 키비앙부 디기티기다 shont tsawachi ani di dewa deshi ani phe kanjin jungki ta chi riksuma chiwigi ani chi lama kyew tamba digiteli ya tuch ro ani chi jon ani thongma phegi ta chi kama borobi dorji tsubi riksuma chibi ro anzu phegi gi chi chugi chembo shise jores di riksuma chibi lama kyew tambi gi sonle ya tu 아니 손추신 아니 십들 제체니 아니 땡라 팝샤가지 마도베기 랑가지 손샤가지 자원이니 차고 말이스 딩안주 인지미 샘을 샤고도스로.
So here we're looking at the middling Lamrim as composed by the great master Lama Tsongkhapa. So when we look at what Lama Tsongkhapa did in those teachings, first of all, he based them on the teachings on Sutra and Tantra that the Buddha gave. That's the foundation. And on the basis of that, he gave explanation drawing from the teachings of the 17 powerful masters of Nalanda, such as Nagarjuna and so forth. Also from teachings that were given by great Tibetan masters across all traditions within Tibetan Buddhism without having a sense of partiality, drawing from the teachings of the Kamapa, the Rigpa Doji, the Kamapa Ropa Doji, which means that this point symbolizes this unbiased approach to the teachings all across traditions in the Tibetan tradition. So taking up those teachings, analyzing them, and then making determination with respect to the essential points that are found in those teachings. So if you limit yourself in a biased way, in a partial way, to only one form of explanation in one tradition and so forth, your ability to make such determination would be limited. You will not be able to do it. Whereas if you take that approach, as you can see, that was embodied by Lama Tsongkhapa, then you can finally make those determination or conclusion with respect to the views presented in those texts. So looking at the causes of the 8 attributes of fruition, it says, the causes for them. So it says this has 8 points. The first of which is not to harm any sentient beings and to cultivate an attitude of non-harm. So non-harmfulness, an attitude of non-harm is a cause contributing to longevity, living a long life with less harm and also a happy life.
Shambe Lavalea, two dinging, Pena Sochata, Dindi Simjent in the Euros, Pena Tiri Dojita, Socialia Teams, Shambe Lavalea, two singing di, and Dilly Tatter Chela Soba. The Didi, the one Tanigi, and it's tell me be lamb, or Dindi Songodas, Social Chuba Lake Downtown. 대신 속이 펜다신 소차 세월 레도비 세리반 토브링교 네비 닝굴 펜체바 맨 랍드 짐바다 소차 봉원 진수 인소기 세월 메레 네메이 시소스.
So here the first cause is said to be non-harm. So it's not simply not harming others. Here it is understood as an attitude in which you have overcome or turned your back to harming others. So it's not simply not harming, it is the overcoming of harmfulness. So how do we then overcome harming others? We do that through protecting others, holding them in our hands, so to speak. No, holding them in our hands in taking them away from harm or protecting them from harm. This is the attitude of non-harmfulness that we're speaking about here. So Lama Tsongkhapa says in relation to that, in quoting from the discourse explaining 7 qualities, by freeing beings bound for slaughter and likewise helping through sustaining life, by turning away from harming animals, you will obtain longevity. Out of caring for the sick as a healer, administrating medicine and not harming creatures with stones or sticks, you will be without illness.
어디래서 단디는 내가 찍디 당한서 찍바 일론 딘딜이야 찍 비게 메시버 체딩이 멤버 체딩이 앞에 망보르 딘딜이야 찍 콜롱 계단데 데스 찍 모드를 제토바이나 아니 팬도 친구 쇼지 소수 메세 관계 레가던 데워야 되바 찍죠 니마니마 레가던 데워야 되바 찍 아니 니마니마 레가디 원의 단위기 개월 납치질이야 아니 조토바나 델릴 하지 먹어야지래도 아스로 텐자지 콜롱디 오늘 전에 피길래야지 페나 삼비 아니 파쇼미기 지 나사티베 아니 지 생자야고 쇼나 삼성그 콜롱 텐디지 케니 아니 멘테바 네요 제바 오 텐디라 소바디 아니 그 소소로 고야디 그 란식 바위온 거를 텐디 제바는데 펜도 쇼시로 야오롱지 뒤다도 아 송구도스.
So particularly in this place, we find a lot of people in the medical occupation, right? As doctors, as therapists, and so forth. So turning what you do, your vocation into something that is virtuous depends upon your motivation. So you take up this job on a daily basis. This is what you do daily. So if daily you also correct your motivation in thinking that I'm going to do that in order to benefit others, then whatever you do, the type of work that you do transforms into virtue. And this is the best way to cultivate virtue, in transforming whatever you do, your vocation, to the practice of virtue. So you treat a sick person and you think, may I free them from sickness? That becomes a virtuous occupation. You give them medicine, you nurse them, it becomes virtue. His Honest always emphasizes the importance of carrying out this attitude.
다든이든 말이 단이버 말멜라 소비 나와당 거사바 점바 셴야 초멜라 템바당 겐젠바요 수상니 차도 메빈 되는데 깨와상보라듯이 제소스.
Now looking at the second attribute of fruition, the second is to offer light in the form of button lamps and so forth, and new clothing. Furthermore, it says, by relying on having no anger and offering jewelry, you will have a good physique. The result of having no jealousy is said to be good fortune.
데르다지 당한수 페나 페나다 페나 로 log doj ro log kadu na nganzo par gogras log par bi kaptula ya chi ani log pi ani secha yongwa da chi ani mumbi nawa sesu seba show samsung tindi kulong ri ketu bana pe ya bu yosares log par bi kaptula ya chi ani ya chi log chö pi samsung kulong kiela soba an tindi chona ani lamrim dan tumba chi ro kanji ani gewa chago sares.
So just for instance, we switch on the light, right? So we switch on the light, and together with that, we can think that as the light comes on, that we're dispelling darkness, we're creating illumination, illuminating the mind and so forth. So this is something that we can do, for example, as we switch on the light. And if we think about it, it's a good way of thinking. And this type of motivation accords with what is stated here in the Lamrim.
Nganzo log par go ro ta log par go go re ta log par bi khadu le ta yan log par gi kheso ta bil chim bu phagre samsung ro ta log par ta zamblin khuyu le university ta mambo ra ta dindi gi samlo re ta de ba na log par bi gi getsa chi ta mewa to chak do ro ta dele par no go go re par wa di ko ani gawa gong ton ro ani par sha wa na teni khepsa ni za yo sares.
So as you switch on the light, you can generate, this is something that we anyway need to do. Then you can think about it as creating illumination, dispelling darkness. If you think about it in a different way, like for example, whenever you switch on the light, you think that I'm going to get like a really big electricity bill. And also it's not very good for the environment and so forth. Rather than thinking about it in a positive way, if you think about it in this way, then you can say that you're undermining the virtue that you could create on a mental level. So if it's something that anyway you need to do, then just as you do it, become happy about it in a sense that you use that in order to generate a virtuous state of mind.
Then the course of a jimba kanji and metsit and draw you the yuch. The sum of a metsit and draw you the yuchagonza when the course of a kanya, could be touchy yabu kanya. On to the samalo, some of the tamaina, sonum saya clear, rochogodos. How do the chick lagala soba, chick chunian sala soba, and dindi yomi kadulaya, and it could sama 그 약부 그런지 대한직 소소비 제체 마인바 아니 직 최비 있게는 줘야지 그러 지 교육 군조선래야 지 그bat 선발로 써봐 마무 드라이어 딘디 som다니 아니 비탁부친 줘봐이나 디기 첸데다 첸디다 트레덴래야 팽고라 지 치마기 안지 류포선 써봐 내야기 귤라얀 로그요사레스.
Also, this section mentions the attitude that we have with respect to our clothing, right? So it says also the second is to offer light in the form of battle lamps and so forth, and new clothing, right? So anyway, clothing is part of the way of living. So you also develop that attitude with respect to the way that you dress up in new clothing and so forth, and use even that as ways of accumulating merit, particularly if you were to visit a temple, right? So you visit a temple, you go for teachings and you dress up in neat and clean clothing, not in order to kind of appear really attractive or really beautiful, but you think that this is part of an offering that I made in coming to a temple. This is part of developing a respectful attitude in receiving teachings. So if you do that, this is a good attitude, not only contributing to, you can say, good health, but also particularly it contributes to the accumulation of those perfect causes and excellent causes that are mentioned here.
장관놈은 증거가 준비하기 아니 남사 시단도 좀 아니 가서 다지 부탁하신 시기에 로지어레스 안 하던데 남자카리 셰바이나야 도스베 첸디첸로 아니 직 자치 첸디 스웨체네 아니 콜 두비 랍자 코라나노예 요라스 샨도 dom보코나 하버차오스 베 아니 직 단연부첸 로 어딘지라 소바 아니 셰고르 송요라스 어딘나신첸 베는 장골로 zon가고 지미 딘난 거레스 여러무치는 베 아니 남자도즈라 당도 쇼치 난진 피기 양지 하장 피기 거센라 소바다 딘디 안 산지 좀 된디 랍숑기 피기기 그 덴센나노라야 요마레스 저 여러무치기 발급질라야 지 벽이 라마 pombo tundila ya pi kuchen ki shu zam tari orde ne jawrum ji tu pe ani zama sujin ta pe nyor ro yares ro tu san ji jamden dige tan devi shon shizu chen namza sende shela soba teni hadon de ngaran gen rum chin ro jin pe teni namza tu pe sende shu chin she de zo pe masiba teni temple ya phengyo sares ro 당한저 라브숑도 딘디레스 미게 짐바나야 고둘라 야우지 콘둘라 센데 지콘 로바나 아니 추년가리 지 라마기위신 지가리 두 센데 로바나 쿠십 생고레 디소누서 위디올라 조고레스 디기 아니 비기 디 규텔테니 케와치마 아니 지 루상부 레야기 gyolayan 조고요레스
So this attitude that we adopt with respect to what we wear was also embodied by Lama Tsongkhapa, was also very particular and very good in the way that in his attitude towards the robes. His attitude with respect to the robes was perfect, in a sense that when you look at the life story of Lama Tsongkhapa, it was mentioned that the robes that he was wearing were of the right measure, in the sense that they were like fully qualified robes of a monastic, which means that not only having kind of, you can say, the right item for wearing, but also made in the right proportion, put together in the correct fashion. So in that sense, you can say that the way that he was wearing his robes was balanced. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama also promotes this attitude in speaking about having to, at least for monastics, to be dressed up in an appropriate way, the proper way. So for example, when you look at Tibetan culture, along the centuries, a habit of putting together sewing pieces of brocade into the robes has developed in the Tibetan tradition. But really, when you think about it, as His Holiness says, robes, brocades are not part of the robes of Tibetan monastics, or Buddhist monastics, sorry. They're not parts of the robes. And therefore, over the years, in His Holiness speaking about it, this custom of wearing pieces that had brocades sewn into them has really reduced in the Tibetan tradition. So when you think about it, when you think about what Lama Tsongkhapa says here with respect to making offerings, also offering of clothing, new clothing, and so forth, if you take that attitude as a teacher, someone that is coming to teachings, right? So you're going to meet a teacher, you're going to meet the teachings, you want to be respectful, you want to also use the way that you dress up as offering. You make it, you turn that into a beneficial, helpful attitude. So particularly, Geshe mentioned for monastics wearing the robes, but of course we can think about it also with respect to the laity, right? So you go to teachings, you go to see teachers, you think that I want to be dressed up properly, right, in a good measure. And again, not kind of wanting to appear beautiful or attractive, but just to think that I want to make that offering, I want to be respectful. So you turn your attitude into a virtuous attitude, which means that this type of attitude is contributing also to a good rebirth, having a good rebirth, having a good working basis, a body, so to speak, in your next lifetimes.
charo nangados. Tana jik, ani samzalaya, namsa shedan pigi tes chingdimena, ani song dos. Or dindi song yordas, Rajaramchi. Tesu Kechambu Chago Sares, Rangazu Chichi Dolo Kanda Karkana Samsung. In the Chichina, Manzu Chik, ani Tong Debuch, Fiona Yabudos, Tong Debutigi, Mi Shengi Sam Kamlaya, ani Devati Gorta. Tong Debuch Chawana, Mi Shengi Sam Kamlaya, Kasota Shidig Sorach, and Ninja Tona, and Ranshinki Kibu Sorach, Yunguda, that so they were Yunguda, or Ditegors, the dig that dig sonum singing, the Sagot, that Delatani, and Ton Debu, and Luti, Kieva language was. That Ton Debu, Kieva Leni, Misse Guba Carrier Slavana, and Miss Shanda, and Mishengi Semcomlaya, Pavia Yungdata. Jidan Ton Devu Menaya, Mapavi never do Mardini, Ton Devu Giovanna, and Mishengi Semcomlaya, Pavoris, the Pavaina, and Mishenglaya, Pentochi, and Gildogoris. Mishengi Semcomla Mapona, and Pentochi, Gorgian Dogoris. Then the Tabachim children too much. 그 루상부디 대부분 추기 추지하기 자기인지 자건자 닌디 송구였어레스.
It's honest that Dalai Lama said that at an earlier stage of his life, the Nechun oracle was quite helpful to him in terms of just giving him sometimes advice about the way that he used to dress up. You know, if something was not right, if it wasn't dressed up properly, then the natural oracle came around and gave him an advice, corrected the way that he was dressed up. So he said that he found that really helpful. Anyway, here the point is that with respect to the way that we dress up, we want to dress up in a way that would make it comfortable for people, nice for people to behold or to see. I don't know how to say that properly in English. Now, you want to make sure that you look well. When I say look well, it doesn't mean to say that, you know, in Tibetan, when you say look well, it doesn't mean to say that you need to be dressed like really richly, just kind of to make it okay or comfortable for people to see you, in the sense that if you look well, if you, the way that you dress up is in something that is creating pleasure in the minds of others, then you're providing them with mental happiness or mental comfort. You can say that this is also something that is something that helps you to accumulate merit. So you conform to the mentality of others. You can say that whatever you wear agrees with the mentality of others. And this is, you can say, a part or a cause that we use for benefiting others. Particularly here, since we're looking at those teachings from a Mahayana perspective, you can say that even that becomes part of a Mahayana attitude, which is aiming at being of benefit to others.
Teni to mela temba tang genjin bayu suzanye thagdo mebin devani kawam samburav dishis.
Let's look at the third point, third cause. It says the third is to overcome one's pride and, like a servant, to respect gurus and others.
Tadil da yakshu di ro nganzu ta chik suk sambol leya ge gyu yakshu di chowa mebal temba ro chowa mebal temba chamzil temba di ta chik mi ge tongchul yongya ge gen yakshu gyu yakshu di ane chowa mebal dan chambal temba di chagore ta di cheba na sende da chima khal imba na ta di pusum sobi gyolan druguyoras ta dini chi gen sambo jimba ro and ta gen sambo jimba ta jinsi yulaya ane pusi yulaya ta damara yon chogoras ane chi min thama balaya yon chogore ane chi manzo ta konjog ne jizun dremi chi kundala soba jizun jambi yang kundala soba 아니 지 산지 잠봉 공비 지 군달로 소바 딘딜라야 지 겐상부 부야로 소바 간지 도저 사망로 아니 소놈 소비다 기포섬 소바 지련도스 아니 타도 메빈데니 딘디진 다 까와 망보 야 안치 류상보 잡도 용야기 규차그리스.
Sorry, I read the wrong section. Geshe was still referring to the second cause for an attribute of fruition. It says, furthermore, it says, by relying on having no anger and offering jewelry, you will have a good physique. The result of having no jealousy is said to be good fortune. So still we're looking at what contributes to a good physique. So it says here, the best for having good physique is having no anger. So having no anger, also treating others with a sense of compassion, with a sense of love and concern. That contributes to having a good form, a good physique. Also, it says here by offering jewelry. So we sometimes offer jewelry or nice pieces of clothing to statues like Tara or Manjushri, offering jewelry or good clothing to Maitreya and so forth. There's ways of accumulating merit, contributing to a good physique. Also, it says here, the result of having no jealousy is said to be good fortune.
디르데 베나가즈다 게망슈 디다 지 페메 소그다 아니 룰레야 겐차 망부 따고라스다 디타베 갑두레이나야 디 덴덴 투스무 시 초고 상고도스라 아니 따고 페메지기다 개와인자 아니 지준 드미게 피 가서다 지 챙기 차시 지 덴바데 야자야담바레스 이제 지 지준 드미게 피기다 지 아니 rigleya yu sambitoni ani gen tgiti shebayna tende yani kebayu gires ro
Sengi cheshchikresna moitene
sensambo jejun jumita sensambo mambu yoras the dindi sengi chashi mambu ta pemejin za dengros ro tinza the kanji jejun jumi rigji samchini ani jejun jumi kulaya be ani gen do yu sambi 그 딘디케니 아니 소소 genja 야고타니 안 드라바이나 더 미싱 샘공라야 핑그로스 소소이나 샘공 기부용 거로스 라
or like at this point in time in our society, you can say that the ones that wear, you can say the more jewelry are women. So then if you were born as a woman, a female, or you're wearing jewelry, then you can also incorporate that in your attitude with respect to the Venerable Tara. For example, you think that wearing jewelry is in conformity with the good signs of Venerable Tara, being a Buddha, having the major marks and minor signs of Buddha, including jewelry or a certain attitude. So you think that I was born into the family of Tara, and therefore even the way that I wear my clothes or jewelry conforms with the lineage of Tara or the family of Tara.
The ranking against a chick sungores, the ranking again, Kashilaya, Pig Gensa Tamukongi, and it's Kasota, Yomchun Segorada, and Yomchun Serta, but didn't drawing a rich dosra, and it's Samba Sambo. Miss Sundaji two in a chick pishu, chicken, Jensemda, Chadota, and Dindichimogongi, and it make reaching dosra. 안 가서 되발라 가시 도와서 저인 바이나 배마스 배웠다 디 부숨 소비 규로 류 개와치마 안치 류 삼볼내야 규 부숨 소바디 란싱기 게 비 셈바 삼보 어드조레샤스
But also you can don your natural jewelry in a sense that some don't feel that they need to wear jewelry and so forth. They, with an attitude of being humble, kind-hearted, having not that sense of competitiveness with others, jealousy, and so forth. Geshe, I have met many people here that have that attitude. So in that sense, you use those natural jewelry of kind-heartedness and compassion and so forth. And this is the best way to create those causes, issuing forth in the future qualities, such qualities of fruition.
That then somebody that rata shengi tachi mikashilaya ranshingi mitsama gauchite kubachite tindi yungudosa that dozo you harikorsland ngargir chomni lamala sobata shenla tender kubacheba or tindi cheto baina and ranshingi mission sosulaya and kubaligris.
So then let's look at the third attribute, the cause for the third attribute of fruition. The third is to overcome one's pride and like a servant to respect gurus and others. So some amongst us are popular, they are well respected by others. If you wonder what the causes are for being popular in the sense that you're liked by others, that you're respected, here it says that the cause is to overcome one's pride and like a servant to respect gurus and others.
다 셴그 그버체네 셴그 소소래야 그니 팬도 카리어를 세티 로 디 지민이 다 지금 도시 조사지나 그거에 뭐들 딜성당 시그러 이내야 디
가는 도지.
도시 조사시로 체진 이내 디 가르스나 먼저 태버친 비기 추 징이지기 아니 샴페인 징이지기 학돈 지 셴래야지 아니 추 셴이라 소바 이 지민지기 다 지 미생기 통주 약부치 그바 약부치 여바나 디 척이 아니 팬도 자체와 제토고 여바디 야지야다 말이었어. 맞다. 무슨 제대 겨울무치다고. 그러 잠블링기 미망기 쿠지시온디 잠블링기 겨울무치 칼럽디 잠블링기 미망래야 팬도로야지. 뭐 딘디고도 딘자 셴그 쿠버세디 고 개침부치 대 유포섬 소버질 때니 용거를 마도 디메나 아니 메싱 가우치야 돼 가부 베러스. 그러
You might wonder, what's the benefit in developing this attitude in which you respect others, your respectful attitude? Wouldn't it be just okay to focus on just being respectful, having less desire and being more content? Well, on top of this attitude of having less desire and being more content, it's important also to develop this attitude of being respectful to others, because particularly when you think about it from the point of view of the Mahayana, where we develop an altruistic intention, the wish to be of benefit to others, where, for example, you teach the Dharma as a way of benefiting others, it's important to also develop a respectful attitude towards others. And you can see that, for example, in the approach of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is in his teaching or advice to others, is always carrying it out with this respectful attitude towards others. And through that, it can benefit them. So this is really important. It's important to develop this attitude as a way of making sure that we can benefit others. Through that, we create perfect causes leading to those attributes of fruition.
terda shibadi 세그속 홍원라 진신 monhongla pendo bata dongwa de yongdin shin yoje mebala par jimba was.
Let's look at the fourth. The fourth is to give food, clothing, and so forth to those who ask for it, as well as to benefit others without being asked, and to give to those who are suffering, as well as to those who are the field of excellent qualities, but in need of requisites.
다 냠년데 빼나 다지 아니 론쪽 토바 매바 로 어딘지 용냐라야 아니 규카르 거스디 아니 셴라야 짐바타야 소고도조 아니 베 케쳔보 어딘지 로 어딘지 레스.
So keep in mind that here, when we look at those causes for the 8 attributes of fruitions, we look at how we create this best working basis, the best support for the practice of the Mahayana Dharma. And the practice of the Mahayana Dharma is a practice of benefiting others. So in order to create this best support for this practice of benefiting others, you need to have, for example, you need to have no impediments with respect to enjoyments or resources. For that, generosity is important.
다 나바디 셴게 랑라야 다 이체 용야 셴게 랑라야 이체가 부지 용야 제발라야 규카르 거스란디 나기 미기어 시빵발라야 콤고 그레스 라 뒤균딩 그준 참아츠즈가 켈티히들야 다지 아니 빵랑 주도야 부 제바이나 아니 미셴게 이지치기로 왔더라 뒤균딩 그 준셰딩이 미지바나 아니 미셴게 다 이지치 말하다 디공유로 왔더라.
Then the fifth reads, the fifth is to cultivate the habit of abandoning the 4 non-virtues of speech. So particularly here, again, when we think about creating the basis of benefiting others, you need others to trust you. You need to be trusted by others. If you need to be trusted by others, then you need to give up the non-virtues of speech, lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. If you lie to others, you're not going to be trusted.
다 두버들이다 미 셴게 소소라야 아니 가면 용야 로 미시 참말로기 지다 쇼빈네스나 문도 가비 네스 큐르바 치발이야 아니 소소 야부치 인고로 왔어 소소라 연된 부숨 쳐봐 로 요고라 딘자 다 소소라 연된 부숨 쳐봐 용래 연된 쭉 연된 디기들이야 장 아니 마시바도서 시워쇼스 물론 순전히 갭 연된 매바도서 연된 토바쇼스 물론 개를 써봐 아니 직군조스물이야 저법이야 아니 직 파마리 녀랑 아니 소소기 직 아니 람딩 기비싱이 도솔이야 다직 저법이라 써봐라 어디디 소소 처빈네 교약이 줄이야 도그리스.
Now the 6th is said to make aspirational. We're reading through the 6th or the 5th? 6th. All right, thank you. The 6th is to make aspirational prayers to accomplish all kinds of excellent qualities in future lives and to make offerings to the 3 jewels, one's parents, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, abbots, masters, and gurus. So again, in thinking of these attributes of fruition where others like you, in that sense you're popular, you need to have those perfect qualities in order to have that status. You need to have those perfect qualities, and in order to attain those perfect qualities, we train. So we train, we develop an understanding or knowledge of the things that we did not know before. We develop qualities. We are making offerings to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the 3 jewels. But also here it mentions also making offerings to your virtuous friends, to your parents, and so forth. The virtuous friend, the person that teaches you this path. So making offerings to all of them is said to be also those causes that you create that give you the status of being liked by others.
다들 돈바들에서 돈바들이야다 그 아주 칸이 최초도 왔어. 아니 분명히 륜등이지 바이나 분명히 깨원 등이지 바이나 아니 기비 룰이야 아니 끼언데 로 아니 기비 룰다 지 밀레비차다 니비차 강요버티 아니 믹스카니 아니 끼언데니 드라바이나 아니 라니 분명히 룰이야기 gyundogres.
Now here with respect to the seventh, Geshe reckons that you can adopt two attitudes with respect to that. So you can approach that from two perspectives. Like for example, here, if you said that actually, I want to be born as a woman. I want to create the causes for being born in the body of a woman. To create causes for that, amongst those causes, is to see the faults in a rebirth as a male. So you think to yourself, if I'm going to be born as a male, I'm going to have those faults. If I'm going to be born as a female, I have those good qualities. So in thinking about it like that, you create causes for being born as a woman.
That GB Lulaya, Melewicha Mambuyoros, Metamandavi,
Do it.
La Toga Chambo, Zogu Chambo, Kamba Chambo, but Dindila so Tinditevana, any so Pumeg Lundugavana, and Pumeg Lu, Lang Guladogras.
So to be born as a man, it also comes with many faults. Asked Geshe, really, is that the case? And Geshe said that yes, you're born, you end up with having like a bulging belly and kind of big fingers and clunky hands. There are faults in being born as a woman. So in order to then avoid that state, you can think of the faults of being born as a man and the good qualities of being born as a woman.
And it Carsa Massa Chambu,
like if you have a bulky body with muscles and so forth, then you can think about it also as a fault of having a body such as this. And Geshe said, I told Geshe, is that a really fault, like having like muscles and so forth? And Geshe said that, yeah, if you don't like that, it is a fault.
That is so kind that she Pumegula Megangi Jimana, could take Genjinguras, the King Chantavana, and Kibi Lulea. That the Gajadamadus Kakyun, Kanji, Kabogi, wrong and Chudi, could Dushell turn the shades Reshamado, Dushell Madova, Chipi, Muyan to kind but the and share the Kunremadus, the teacher Rodankora, Cousin me passion me. Semgamla payag chet. Should think that me passion with Semgamla mapena, we use the Shebanaya, Pendome you check us.
Anyway, so here, although the text approaches that from one angle, one perspective, Geshe reckons that you can apply it in both ways. If you would like to be born as a woman, you can observe the faults of being born in the body of a male and the good qualities of being born as a woman. Or if you do not want to be born as a woman, you can see, you can look at the faults in being born in a body like that and the qualities or the good things about being born in a male body. So Geshe reckons that it works both ways. Anyway, in looking at a set of teachings like that, you also need to put those teachings in a certain context, to take them in a certain context. The teachings are given in relation to the disciples that those teachings are given to. So it's not that teachings are given irrespective of who the disciple is, who or she, who they are. So they're given in relation to certain disciples in order to benefit them. In order to benefit, those teachings need to conform with the mentality of those disciples. If they conform with the mentality of those disciples, then those teachings can be of help. And therefore, it's not that those teachings were given irrespective of the mentality of those disciples. Otherwise, if they were given irrespective of the mentality of the disciples, those teachings would not have been beneficial to them.
That didn't give a day, is Gabati. Shengi 10 maneuvers, Shengi P. Touch 10 maneuvers, Laundi, Shengi, Shengi, Chumatoba, shengi ne mutuba an shengi wangyu mutuba la soba rangi chebatan rangda dombi nubala chok chebatan sadon terwas.
So looking at the eighth is to accomplish what others are unable to do, to help them do what they can accomplish with your assistance, and to give food and drink to others. So if you want to be born in a state in which others cannot bully you, they cannot push you to do things that you do not want. In that sense, you're not overcome by others. To create the causes for that is to accomplish what others are unable to do, to help them do what they can accomplish with your assistance, and to give food and drink to others.
That gyugebotes gyusum da dena number nam purtu chon gyur gyusumla sem number tabala ran teba nines gyutubi gewanam lame chanju dungwani namela merewo in tabani gyunam drubani shuk takbawo shanla teba nines chen tomba ramdin tasum tona chagdo ransom nyeba pani jesu yaranta tedar manu na nirensin cheser leman du tobawo Jowa tagbala rangla döneni tyurenwata parmacheba shukchaba shanla döbani yan tagba manamba tang lendu shuba lamba nang gawa kibishe nagba jabada gyumma cheba cheba meturba cheba shin tabani samjur teni nye dreba mangshin sangwa terbi na shin dundrawe sus.
So we've covered the causes for the 8 attributes of fruition, and it says if those 8 causes are conjoined with 3 conditions, the fully ripened effects will be outstanding. So looking at the 3 conditions, they're explained in the following way. First of all, the first condition is pure attitude. There are 2 kinds of pure attitudes: pure attitude related to oneself and pure attitude related to others. Each of these has 2 aspects. Beginning with pure attitude related to yourself, the 2 aspects of pure attitude related to oneself are: 1, to dedicate the virtues, the causes, to unsurpassable enlightenment without hoping for the maturation in samsara. And the second is to accomplish these causes from the depth of one's heart with earnest sincerity. Now, the second aspect is pure attitude related to others. And it says it has 2 aspects of pure attitude related to others. They are to give up jealousy, rivalry, and contempt when you see others practicing the Dharma at a higher, equal, or lower level than you, and to instead rejoice. The second is, even if you are not capable of that, to think of it many times a day as the ideal way to act. Now, the second condition is pure application. Now, pure application related to oneself consists in practicing virtue for a long time, continually and intensively. Pure application related to others consists in bringing those who are not correctly cultivating virtue to do so, and praising those who are cultivating virtue so that they take delight in it, causing them to continue without interruption and preventing them from abandoning it. Now, the third condition is pure field. This is simply that both attitude and application are like a field in that they produce plenty of good fruit.
Tadene sumba lanis Jirtembata, Cabaret Toshi Jansulo, Tambun Junjuli, Megiwali Dunganjong, Telichidang Yetarshi, Ninsen Kontu Dagini, Dinin Bashi Sambari, Shedan. Gave each on the Tamji Zawameban Tumbeson. Tayan Zawa Tautun, Namen Jebu Combeso. She Sombatar Kanagi Lende Shibarchini, Yanda Yandu Gombar Chadi, Denishin the Kodu Kiri, Neba chi nika vichero. Tenting is a jaboli. Dawa karma neba. Dawa karma cheba. Nel honshi. Rida tondu chibe sashila. Namkin kamnu namba shen kirkyan. Kyone meden bayi sigmuson. She sombatar. 대신시비 손라 이치버 첼라 깡데 델라 쯤이기 네버 마니나 최 강라야 야와기비 네버 미니토스.
So then we begin the section of having contemplated karma and its effects, how to engage in virtue and to desist from non-virtue. And this has 2 points. First off, a general presentation, and then in particular, how to purify bad actions by means of the 4 powers. Let's begin with a general presentation. We draw from Shantideva's engaging in the Bodhisattva way, which says, suffering arises from non-virtue. How can I surely be freed from it? It is appropriate day and night always to contemplate nothing but this. And also the sage taught that the resolute faith is the root of all virtues. And the root of that is to meditate continuously on fully ripened effects. So once you have come to understand virtues and non-virtuous actions and their effects, you should meditate on this over and over again, because it is extremely difficult to gain certainty about it since it is very hidden. The King of Concentration Sutra says, even if the moon and stars were to fall, and the earth were to collapse with its mountains and towns, and the heavenly realms were to utterly change, still no word you have spoken would be untrue. So you should thus develop conviction in the words of the Tathagata and maintain it. Unless you have gained uncontrived certainty about them, you will not gain the certainty that pleases the victors about any Dharma teaching. Some profess to have gained certainty about emptiness, yet do not have certainty about actions and their effects, not even care about it. They have arrived at a mistaken understanding of emptiness, for if they understood emptiness, they would see it to be the meaning of dependent arisings, which would be helpful for gaining certainty about actions and their effects.
Kyoti kaji tombani nangiba
Ja.
ka set loy na
Ja, die Leute.
kimudo
Ja.
ta direse da dom gyam songyati dom gyam karteng doslaundi megi wale dongan jons nganzu mendu gyudu dongaro degi deware was da donga kal deni jons na megi wale deni jungu yores lawandi da karla wada dongan degu mena keran megi we chawchiyati ka gores kenan dewan dogu yana ani gewi chaw dub gores o direndo asra.
So looking at the import of this section, what it says is that suffering arises from non-virtues. Happiness arises from virtues. So if you want no suffering, you need to stop acting in a non-virtuous way. If you're seeking happiness and well-being, what you need to do is to cultivate virtue.
The gewi chawa kandas dub gores la the gewi chawa di chawa mebal tuga di sanji jamde ne song yores ra meba sadi meba kalden legs na yonden tona meba legres yonden tona meba legres ra ta meba yona ani ichi deba legres ra ta ichi debi tobgi teni sanji chele ya jutu ya 아니 라운드르니 셰토야 안 델데네 마리와 도토야 아니 차단 도 안 델데네 다 타와 탐지기 공방 아니 어딘디 진다 숭구여로 왔으라.
Then if you wonder about the way to cultivate virtue, well, it depends upon having an esteem to virtue, holding it in high esteem. In order to hold it in high esteem, you need to see the qualities of virtue. So when you see the qualities, the good qualities of virtue, you develop high esteem. From that, you develop trusting faith. And when you develop trusting faith, then you can then engage the Buddha Dharma. You can engage the teachings. You can practice properly what needs to be taken up and cast aside what needs to be rejected. You reduce anger and attachment. You eliminate ignorance. You proceed throughout the path to liberation and enlightenment. They come from having that sense of esteem to virtue.
랭안주 다 람람 고 담보 네 피게치 아니 셴이 텐주 체치는다 연된 따고리 손대디 내가 뒤투고다 연된 때바이나 이치기 대바 다 산기기 손래야 걔는 이치기 대바 제초그래 간스나 땡인지 잡인 도나로야 다와까마 제바 네 홍신 르다 총도 집에 사실라 남기 감는 남바 셴규냐 아니 야와큐기 메덴베기 시그마 소마 야체야 담바리스 진짜로 이치 제초그래스.
So in the presentation of the Lamrim, the steps of the path of enlightenment, seeing of the good qualities or observing the good quality of a spiritual teacher is emphasized. It is said that you need to see the good qualities of the spiritual teacher, for from that trusting faith arises. And if you have trusting faith in the spiritual teacher from having seen the good qualities, it is what the King of Concentration Sutra referred to. Even if the moon and stars were to fall, the earth were to collapse with its mountains and towns, and the heavenly realms were to utterly change, still no word you have spoken would be untrue. So this is the sense of trusting faith that you develop from seeing their good qualities. So we will leave the text here for now. All right, so let's finish it up with reciting the final Lamrim dedication.
Yeah.
Mm. 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 Even like, you know, to read whatever books you come across, or to go to teachings, whatever teachings there are. Mm. All right, so I'm just going to repeat the question for the people at home. So Geshe spoke at some point during the teachings that teachings should be given according to, you could say, the disposition or mentality of the disciples. So it is not permitted to give teachings which do not accord with the disposition or the mentality of a certain disciple. But then instead of, when we look at our, what we do, like for example, we listen to teachings, we listen to Geshe's teachings, but also we have different books that we read too, we decide which teachings that we go to. So in thinking of this idea that teaching should be given in a way that accords with the mentality, then is there like a guideline or that you can follow step by step, to make sure that you're following the right process of development with its teachings? I think that this is the question, right? All right, cool. Okay. Dila karangi bagachila ane dujadi nyumaimba shechogi mares nendechi nengachi leimba. 제가 데이터라 삼로타와이나 코란디 레탄보아인상 코란 찬잠 탭든데 잠인다 따데기여스 아니 그런 순주디 슈데기여스 아니 코란 호타바도 럽전 제답 체나얀 이네 코란 돌라 삼로타와이나 베시 뉴민데데 베시 샤초게레사 제가 코란 뉴마인바치 샤와이나 디 Dila Rimbachen Lobjon Chetan de Geshe de Gayore Nurong Chai Dendechi Danga Dendechi Shu Yorve Kandechina stick.
Kera jaji jatamba nerong res. Tangi takche tuyadi 계란 neuron race. 간선은 계란 자지 자다면 그게 장애가 몇번 열어왔어. 그러 상기기 최 장애가 몇번 열어왔어. neuron race. 딱 같이 아니 장애가 매번 마세 그게 꽤 직사야 체도 something in yours. 다 두수 너무로한테 두수레스. 다 마대받게 되니. 로 대범명이 마대받게 되니. 꽤 단도여 되니. 디디 너무론 차고레스. 로 너 많이 받차고 말도 계란 자지자도만 너롱레스.
Well, to begin with, Geshe reckons that you're definitely a suitable vessel for that. Definitely, Geshe reckons 100% certain, because first of all, you hold this process of studying in high esteem. You have high regards for learning about it, and therefore Geshe says that just this turns you into a suitable vessel. Because we sometimes do come across others that have other attitude with respect to that. So some not only do not hold Dharma study in high esteem, they see that it's actually a bad thing to do or a fault. They criticize that. They say that this is not the thing to do. This is a fault, which means that they're not suitable vessel. They either have no fault, they have no faith, or they see studying as something that is faulty. Now, obviously, you don't have that attitude. You actually want to study in the sense that you hold that as important or in high esteem. And therefore, to begin with, Geshe says that definitely you're a suitable vessel.
제다 저단 겨울음치 배 망부다 다 송여러스라 내가 치슈 지래야 겨울음치기 지금 제바도 마스는 개치슈 지금 나눠라야 가르송고레스라는데 지 출룩라야 마템비 산저세지 송고레스 디 조디 지 비다 지금 난출라야 돈나명에 아니 된일명에 이내야 미치기부 참면 되고라서 딘지실이야 명이 송고도스 다디기 상인기 미망슈드 가요를 디간서 상당 거지 그러 이제 유론 디디래야 명이 송고여버도 베스티브 차도스 딘자 당한주 미치기부 용야디 아니 지 개왕 치마케 랭게 마라 랑자로 아니 생하시니가래 팬도여버디 셈바상부 치야디 셈바상부 잠제 고미야디 데 참인 되걸 디 송고도스라 디 아니 고양부 쇼직 벤 최케멜랭이지만이야 잠지 잠지가 가워여라다 고양부 쇼직 디 돈은 로샤와나 아니 지 소소 베게 담대와 소르지 마임바 까디비 소르지 마임바 라왕 까디비 소르지 마임바 고양 여바 아니 지 아니 펜도 여바 딥페마스 계시모 인사레스 딱 원에 지 남발에 슈지네 벤 깜주도 많이 지 켈렌치 여바는 고 시송치는 전다 무슨 써버렸어 두고 매바이나 아니 디 가서 람루 디바 샤치니 디나 고 주야가 탑시 맞지버지 소소기 베 아니 잠제다 남주 트야기 톨이야 베전치니 디기 랍샤디 출루 가와니나야 랭유기 딜렌 드바이나 야차갸다 맞니 아니 쇼야고 차고서레스 야오름지 공시 디다 베 랍친 쇼로 더제리라 딘디차샤스
It's honest, the Dalai Lama gave so far many teachings, and of the great things that His Holiness has accomplished, one of them is the emphasizing of the importance of secular ethics. Some might not feel that they want to take up Buddhism, that this is something that is right for them to practice, but still, so they're not interested in Buddhism, but they're interested in having a good and happy life. So secular ethics is important for at least developing a good or a happy life. So you can say therefore that those teachings on secular ethics given to those who are not interested in Buddhism is a suitable teaching for a place like this, like for example. So you want to have a good life. You're not interested in past lifetimes, future lifetimes, you looking at what happens to you in an early stage of your life, you're looking at the later stage, the second part of your life. You want to make sure that you live a happy and good life. For that, is honest emphasizing the importance of developing an attitude of care for others, an attitude of love towards others. It makes your mind become more relaxed and more spacious. So emphasizing the importance of these attitudes, caring attitude, a loving attitude towards others, as something that makes your mind more relaxed, more spacious, means that it's not that you're taught that you need to do that. It's not that you're forced to take up those attitudes. It's not that someone is making you developing love and concern for others. It's more like when you see how through developing those attitudes, your mind is made more relaxed, more spacious, and that it benefits your life, then you decide to take it up yourself. And this way of teaching secular ethics is really helpful. It is beneficial. Otherwise, if you do engage in a Buddhist tradition, you take upon yourself the vow, you can definitely use that. It is definitely beneficial. But if you think that you cannot do that, this is not something for you, still, you can live your life without taking up Buddhism, without taking up vows and so forth, and cultivating love and concern for others and developing wisdom, without committing to become Buddhist. And you can actually draw from the teachings of other traditions, teaching loving kindness, teaching the way to develop wisdom. So you can draw from other religion in order to inform or to enrich your way of developing an attitude of care for others in this life. And Geshe feels that therefore this advice that His Holiness gave, emphasizing secular ethics, is a great advice.
Thank you.
All right, so let's finish with the final Lamrim. So I'm not sure that Geshe is familiar with I Ching. So I Ching is a Chinese kind of form of yeah. So kind of it's more like a system of kind of you do your own divination sort of system, right? Dila Garen pache bachi la the kuten nechun kuten kola the labjachi namsa labjachi china de pento shuji chun son de chik sondwa. Jason nechun tenya se di kuten tenya se di yan di gami luksuna yan di labja tentan shembachi yoro dila iching si yore. Soso kanchi deshiga gore soso mogya den dawachi resha. Soso mogya wa ina tadi lamtan chuba kanchi che wa ina kanchi yawo yongwa ma chi dente lukso chi yosare. Kran sana dente di tenwa ina penservice.
Tanda nejong da nejong kudeni kyaba chigo kras. Ra. Nejong kuden silana nejong pavsa ke midira. Yaronji tel tengyo mare.
Mare kran di namsa shetan di ta.
Namsa shetan nejong kuden sego mare. Kuden midira. Midila go mare. Nejong korang yaronji kona nine gotos sungotos.
Kare di
Lag.
hakonanas. Okay. Okay. So first of all, when Geshe referred to Nechung, he actually didn't refer to the oracle himself. The oracle is a person. So my conversation now with Geshe said that it is actually Nechung himself, the deity, has gave his honest this personal advice. Rather than a person, a human being, it was Nechung himself that gave his honest this advice.
Then Moja said Chudangi number chigo mares. Pyogi Tommy Chulu Pyongi Naya 모자기도 왔다. 이내 모자디 니두스 때와나 모자도 우투비 레가 로지레샤스 로 우투 다 우투는 가르스나 람딘 슈사 야부치네 아니 수주 남주고 돈에 다시 마투 다지 다 믹점는 로고라다 다 로고디 잠발라 다디 아니 모자야디 로 다디 아니 코 믹점는 로야가 소르지 레샤스 다 약슈디 아니 산기비 최장치 베는 덴바시 덴바니 아니 참닌지 잔주고 셈셀로서 딘지 콜송자 도술이야 가주스기 잠바체토 디츠기 람마노라지라 레야디 게시자다마레샤스로 안도 모자도 디니로지레샤스로.
All right, so to begin with, since I'm really not familiar with the system of itching, you know, I've heard about it, but I don't know exactly what it means. I just told Geshe that it's likely to be a system that is similar to the divination system in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, right? So that's the way I was able to describe it for the time being. So Geshe says that at least in the Tibetan tradition, there is a system of divination. Not only in the Buddhist tradition, but also the Burn tradition that predated the Buddhist tradition also had some techniques for doing such divinations. So at least Geshe's personal approach with that is that you do it when you have nothing else to do, or you can do nothing else, in a sense that sometimes you cannot see any other way. You cannot see any other method or you don't see clearly any other method or way to do whatever you want to do. You don't see a clear pathway. So in that sense, kind of with your eyes closed, you just kind of go for a divination. So this is one way of doing that, but Geshe feels that in general, the best way to proceed in making certain decisions is to do that based on the study and understanding of the four truths, the two truths, through the development of love and compassion to others. That would give you kind of a better decision-making process. All right. For my two collections, vast is space that I've amassed from working with effort that is practiced for a great length of time, and I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds, wisdom, eyes blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be hailing in love and compassion for all life's Manjushri. May I find the best of completed graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the paths as I've discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time, with my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined. May I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted unto his peace, and may the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by even this graded path of enlightenment completed due to the wondrous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all humans and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never be departed in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtues practices, may it always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. Thank you.